Good morning, you guys. If you please want to take out your notebooks and check out these two problems. The first one is after 4 tests, your average score is a 94. What score must you earn to get an average of 96? So hopefully you know that there's 5 tests happening there. Right here, this is a great probability problem that will help some of you guys out with your test corrections. So in a bag, okay, for some of you, you liked cow problems, but in a bag, you had 4 pink marbles, 7 purple marbles, 2 glitter marbles, and 3 white marbles. You're going to pick out 3 marbles at random without replacement. What's the probability of drawing 2 pink and then a purple? So I'll give you some time to do that. So if we start these, you guys, after 4 tests, your average score is 94. Hopefully you guys know by now. Take 94, multiply it by 4, figure out how many points you already have. So you have 376 points. Well, if you want to average a 96, you better multiply that by 5 to see how many points you need. 45, 48. If this is how many points you need, this is how many points you have. Hopefully you know you just subtract the 2. You get a 4. You're borrowing, because that's already a 7. Oh my gosh, you're not borrowing. Okay, you borrowed this, you made it a 7. 10 minus 6 is 4. 7 minus 7 is 0. 4 minus 3. So you got to get out 104. That means you need extra credit. You need extra credit on your next test if it's doable. Okay, now if we talk about this one, stay organized with this next one. Go 4 pink, P-I for pink. Okay, then you have 7 purple. Go 7 P-U. 2 glitter, so put 2G, and then 3 white. Well, right now, you guys know for probability, you're going to have to figure out the total because it's always favorable over total. But right here, we're going to have 3 different probabilities because you take out 3 marbles. So the first thing you should do is figure out the total. 4 plus 7 is 11, plus 2 is 13. 13 plus 3 is 16. And then it says, what's the probability of picking out 2 pink marbles? Well, the first one is going to be 4 out of 16. But then there's only going to be 15 left because it's not replacing them. And then there's only going to be 14 left when you get to the 3rd marble. So anyways, first you had 4, but then you picked 1 out. So then you have 3 out of 15. And then it says, what's the probability of picking out a purple? Then you got to go to purple. There's 7 in there. So then you have 7 out of 14. Some of you guys make your life really hard when it's multiplication of fractions. You forget that you can cross cancel. Hopefully you just reduce that to 1/2. Hopefully you reduce this to 1/5. Hopefully you reduce this to 1/4. So then we just multiply the numbers across. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 times 2 is 40. So the probability that all of this is going to happen is 1/40th. Now, please make sure you ask me questions if you don't understand it, because right now we're going to dive into something new, which is Lesson 103, power of negative numbers, dividing terms, and square roots of monomials. And if you want to do this real quick, that would be great. And we're going to talk about the other stuff. All right, so if we get to it, power of negative numbers, hopefully you take really good notes. Negative times a positive, that's going to be a -6 times, this is going to be times a -12. A negative times a negative, hopefully tell me it's a positive 72. Now, you don't need the plus sign in front, but just thought I'd figure it out. Now, What I want you guys to know is that -1 squared is actually going to be a positive 1. Because if you think about it, it actually means -1 times -1, you get a positive 1. Then right here, if you guys expand that, -1 to the third, that actually means -1 times -1 times -1. And that actually equals a -1 because you have an odd amount. So what I want you guys to get is, hey, if you have a negative number raised to an even amount, you're going to get a positive. If you don't believe me, expand it. -1 times -1. Oh, that's a positive 1. Then you have a -1 times a -1. It's a positive 1. 1 times 1 is just 1. So then, therefore, this one would be a -1. This one, -1 raised to an odd number. Hopefully you guys know by now it's a negative. And right here, this -1 raised to a really large even number would actually be a positive 1 in the end. So what I want you guys to understand is not that -1, positive 1, is I want you to understand the symbols, okay? So right off the bat, I'm not going to ask you guys to expand this because you know that it actually means -27 times -27 times -27. But I am going to give you a few moments. I want you to tell me if that's going to be a negative or a positive. And hopefully you said negative, because a negative times a negative is a positive. Positive times a negative, it's going to be a negative. Then, if we go through this, and I'll just rewrite it for you so you can all see it, I would like you in your notebooks to figure out this product. And hopefully you guys know product means the answer of a multiplication problem. And hopefully you guys say, oh, come on, Mrs. Lamb, give me a harder problem. You got this. Then if you multiply these times each other, you get a positive 10 times a -3. Then you can go like this. We're just going left to right. That's 120. 120 times a -3 is just going to be -360. So it's just paying attention to positives and negatives. The next one I would like you guys to simplify is this. Simplify means I actually want an answer, not just negative, positive, but I actually want you to simplify this. So I'll give you a moment to do that. And if you haven't finished, just pause right now until you are. But otherwise, we can just go like this. -2 to the 4th actually means, I would always suggest you to just write it out like that. Because then it's as easy as a multiplication problem. That's going to be 4. This is going to be 4. 4 times 4, you know, is 16. Now, if you're smart, you see -2 to the 5th. Well, that actually means our 16, because that's 2 to the 4th, -2 to the 4th. And then you just have to multiply by another -2. So you just get -32. Now, if you didn't see that, you would go like this. You would expand. And you have -2 times -2 times -2 times -2. That's 4. 4 times 4, 16, like we just wrote down. 16 times -2. There you go. So 2 ways to solve the same problem and get the correct answer. Then for example 3, this is what some of us do a great job at. Some of us get a little lost. So let's use this review to help us out. Now, if you know what you're doing, please pause. If you don't know what you're doing, please just watch. Right now, this problem actually means 12 divided by 3 times If we would expand what x to the third actually means, that actually means x times x times x. Times. Then we have a y up here. And then we have two z's. And I'm sorry I ran out of room. So I'm just going to put like letters down below because all this separated times each other is going to be the same. X squared actually means x times x. Y, that means we just have one y there. And we don't have any z's. So then if we simplify, you all can tell me 12 divided by 3 is 4. Right here we can cross cancel, leaving us with an x up top. Right here the y's cross out. And then you're left with two z's. So then you just put z squared. You can put it over 1, or you can just write this. Either or, it's saying the same thing. So then, I would ask you guys to do this. And once again, please show your work. Now that we know how to expand it, let's use that knowledge. All right, hopefully for this one, you just said this. 10 over 8 times, you got 3 A's up there. A times A times A. We have 1 B, and we have 2 C's. Yes, I didn't run out of room. Okay, then we only have 1 A down there. We have 2 B's, and we have a C. And this is where some of you guys get puzzled a little bit because you're like, well, only 2 goes into there. Well, divide each by 2, and then you have 5 over 4. So then we're going to go 5 over 4. Right here, you can cross cancel the A's. You're going to be left with A squared in your numerator. Right here, you can cross out your B's, and this is where you're like, well, there's a B in the bottom. Well, yeah, just put it right next to the 4. And then you can cross out the C's, leaving us with a C up top. And that's your final answer. So I don't know if you guys ever played Fruit Ninja. It's the old app, okay? But you can Fruit Ninja things when you have multiplication and division to make it a simplified answer. Next new word that you probably wrote down in the beginning of the lesson is perfect square or perfect squares. And I want to explain them, okay? Some of you guys were born on a perfect square. And you might be asking yourself, well, what's a perfect square? A perfect square is when you take the square root of it, it's a nice number. So 4 is a perfect square. If you were born on the 4th, like my daughter, all right, that's a perfect square. Obviously, you weren't born on the 81st, all right? But that's a perfect square because the square root of that is 9. This is another perfect square. A number times itself equals that. See if you can figure that out. Here's another perfect square. No one was born on the 49th either, okay? But you know that the perfect square, the square root of that is 7. But there are other perfect squares you could be born on. Hopefully you tell me the next perfect square after 4, well, that's just 2 squared, would be 3 squared. So if you were born on the 9th, you have a perfect square birthday. And then hopefully you know the pattern, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared. Born on the 16th, that's another perfect square. And hopefully you can tell me even the next one that's possible is 25. If you were born on the 25th, you're born on a perfect square. Now, things that you probably don't know walking into this classroom is how to take the square roots of these. So I would like you to write these down in your notebooks, along with knowing that these are perfect squares. Right here, our perfect square here, as weird as it is, you guys, when you have a variable raised to an exponent, the perfect square is actually half of the exponent. So then when we took the perfect square of this, the square root of 49 is just 7, but then half of this exponent is 10. So once again, what I want you to learn from these examples, take half your exponent to figure out your perfect squares. But you know how to take square roots. So then our next one, it says, which of these monomials is a perfect square? So you got this choice, and this choice. And what essentially I'm asking if it's a perfect square is, which one of these can you take a square root of and it's a nice number?
Where is this
And hopefully you guys are all like, well, you can't take the square root of 8, so better throw that out. You can't take the square root of y because that's just raised to the first. You have to have even exponents, so you selected C, hopefully. And then right here, it just wants you to simplify then. What is the square root of this? Simplify that. And hopefully you guys tell me, oh, square root of 36, 6. I'm video recording. Square root of x squared is x. Square root of y to the 4th is y squared. So 6x y squared. Now, for your practice, okay, I would like all of you guys to do D. All right, let's see here. Let's do I. Let's do H. So maybe I should write this down. D. Maybe I should go in order. That's some of you guys' pet peeves. So DHI. I would like you to do K through M. How many stars we got? Then I'll say the last 10 stars. As weird as that is. I know, I'm a weird one, okay? So D, H, I, K through M. Those should be very quick. And then the last 10 stars. So maybe you want to work backwards. Okay? Cool. Thank you. That's all we got.